I'm going to go ahead and get started with our main programming today. We have two guests on sort of different sides of the rebuilding and adaptation spectrum. Not different sides, it's all the same spectrum. But one of them is really involved in the future of building homes that are passive and are going to be the wave of the future, the only way we can live into the future. And one of them is going to be talking to us about the ways that folks who were affected by the fires can rebuild and recover in more efficient and cost-effective ways. So we're going to hear later on in the meeting from Ken Levenson from Passive House Coalition, and we are going to hear now from Justin Kilpatrick from Restore Zone. I will let Justin do a better job of introducing himself than I will. But Justin is a multi-hyphenate, multi-talented person of all things construction, construction management, who has really been offering quite a useful service to those who have gotten affected by the fires recently, and also not so recently, going back many years in this work. This committee in January did, like a lot of the programming at USGBC California, make a intentional pivot towards rebuilding and support for the wildfire victims for January 7th. And this is a part of that continuing conversation. Justin is really specifically around rebuilding and rehabilitating homes. And then Ken later on will speak to us more about how Passive House and Passive House standards can help to build the future of homes that maybe aren't built yet. I think that's a good summary. Okay, so Justin, you can let me know how terribly I butchered your intro, and I'd love to hear your own intro for yourself as well.
No, Trent, I appreciate it, and it was a great intro. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to me. I did have a presentation going, but just for time's sake, I want to make sure that we also have time for Q&A. So what I'll do, Trent, if that's okay with you, is I'll push out after this meeting. We have a couple page flyers and the presentation that people can go through at their own pace. But since we were working with so many different departments, I want to keep it, pretty simple and try not to bore you guys to death. But again, my name is Justin. I'm one of the owners of Restore Zone. I am one of the owners of Nexus Claim. And then we have a lot of strategic partnerships with different law firms and private equity firms that are really doing their part to help California and many other states, but primarily right now, California, really just bounce back from the natural disasters that have been occurring. So, my background does come, I started in the U.S. Army. Once I finished my 4 years, I've got out and dove right into construction and the restoration industry. I've got, thousands and thousands of claims under my belt between multiple companies, where we've, from start to finish have been able to, really make a difference, what I believe in people's everyday life, especially when natural disaster happens. Primarily the work that we've done is going to be whether it's governmental or insurance-based work. Those are really the two, primary, industry or sectors that I've got my experience with, in owning over, 5 years with one company and just over 7 years with the other. I've seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what our companies do and what we do, we have a huge network and resources available to residential property owners and commercial who've been affected by a natural disaster. Right now, the primary focus, there's been tons of damage in the Palisades area, Arcadia, and everybody's privy to how bad these fires and how many fires have spread throughout California. So, a little bit about what we do is, we pride ourselves in being able to really be a source of information to give each property owner their individual, playbook, so to speak, of all the options that they have available so that they can make an educated decision. We also partner with many nonprofits that are doing great work in these areas to help really bounce things back as best as we can. But, our goal being, and aligning a lot with your guys' mission is, not only do we want to help restore and get people back to a normal sense of living, but make it a lot more efficient, and when it comes to the building materials and making sure that, not that we can prevent a natural disaster from happening, but at least mitigate the damages and what happens in the event it does come across us again. We all know Mother Nature can be absolutely insane, and we just want to make sure that everybody's got the tools and they're prepared, for and when these things do happen. But primarily right now, what we've been doing in the California area is we've been hyper focused on, the residential and commercial side of anyone who has been affected, by the fires. There's been a lot of situations where people have been displaced from their housing, and we offer tons of different resources and um, opportunities for property owners to, not take the financial burden and also be placed in somewhere that's a comfortable or like kind and quality from what their existing life was, and not being put into a small hotel while things get figured out. So we definitely want to help people at the very beginning all the way to the end. So not only people that have been displaced, what we do work on, our companies offer absolutely free assessments. These assessments are extremely detailed. We pay engineers, we pay inspectors. We also have architects looking at it to validate all of the inspections and documented damages that we notice. What we do is, we'll provide a free evaluation to anyone within the state of California that has been affected, and we will put together a very detailed report of, what happened, what caused it. Obviously, we know the fires, but, more in detail dive than that, what it's going to take to restore everything back to its pre-loss condition or better, and, making sure that all parties are held accountable throughout the process. We've seen the horror stories with the insurance companies, and we've seen the horror stories of people just not knowing what to do or what resources they actually have available. So we do take pride in making sure that if they were displaced or if they were affected by these natural disasters, that we can get them situated for the time being in a comfortable position. And then what we do next as we go through our evaluation is we're going to provide a playbook for everyone so that they know what options are available. Now, I do own construction companies as well, and we do, work every single day in the state of California, multiple projects, all the way from North to South California. So there's really no area of California that we haven't touched yet or, have experience in working with those certain municipalities. But as we, assist or we'll work with the insurance company to provide all of the supporting documentation that they need so that the property owner can expedite and be successful within that process. We also will take a case eval to see where it's at right now and then move forward. And then as we do hold all parties accountable and assist through that, we've got options that if someone's insurance claim is taking long, we've got strategic partnerships with nonprofits and private equity firms that are willing to cover the cost of the restoration or rebuild upfront in full. It is not a loan. It's not based on any type of credit check. There's no upfront payments that need to be taken. Simply, the only thing that's needed on our end is an underwriting to just make sure that things are moving and that we can, jump in and help. So we're always happy to offer that to someone because we do know that these processes take a very long time for people to get back to a regular state of living. And then, in regards to, the options of funding to restore things, like I said, we do have a network of attorneys as well that will work on a contingency basis to make sure the carriers are doing what they're supposed to do. It's a very difficult time for the property owners, and we just want to make sure that, it's not a David Goliath situation to where, it's an even match where everyone's able to really have a level playing field. Um, Without jumping too far into it, I will put out materials. We have a couple page flyers. We've got a PowerPoint that probably lasts about 40 minutes to go through. So you guys can absolutely go through it at your own pace. And then, of course, I'll answer any questions that you guys have more specifically, as we jump into the Q&A. So, everything in a nutshell, we just really want to, be a part of helping people that have been, displaced or put in a pretty tough situation to make sure that they have their options. And everything that we do is on a contingency basis, meaning, there's no upfront or out of pockets that are necessary for any of your customers or any of the property owners. And, really just making sure, like I said, that they have that information to make an educated decision. We don't pressure anyone when it comes to, going through this process, and we do understand it's a delicate time. So, we're definitely here to help. And, as we do build back, we do have the construction forces to be able to, build from scratch, or if it's just repairing when it comes to roofing, exteriors, HVACs and all of the individual trades as well. And we've got ton of different material that I'll push out to you guys, but just for time's sake and to make sure that everybody's got a chance to ask questions and we hear from the second speaker. I'll definitely pass it off right now, Trent, to you guys. I don't know if you want to do Q&A now or if you want to hold it till the end, whatever's best for you.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Let's take a few minutes for questions now, and appreciate you adapting your presentation for time. It's a delicate act. I think I do have sort of a kickoff question, but if other folks have other brewing questions for Justin about the insurance process, please feel free to raise your hand and or put the question in the chat. I would just like to, since it feels like you have dealt with the widest variety of claims and homeowner insurance company relationships, I think that there's no better way to ask this than like, what's the vibe like right now in terms of how insurance companies are responding to wildfire claims? We are now more than 6 months out. Are people in general getting what they need from those who were properly insured? What are the big hiccups? And where do you end up spending a lot of time dealing in sort of the back and forth? Any sort of pro tips to help navigate the initial process?
Yeah, I would say out of about 800 claims that are actively processing within the state of California, the trend seems to be that insurance carriers are dragging their feet. They have made initial payouts to certain property owners, but it is nowhere near the amount that it actually is going to take for, them to get back to a livable state or, pre-loss condition, what we call it. So, right now it's been a fight. These insurance carriers, a lot of them have pulled out of the state of California since these fires. A lot of insurance carriers have taken heavy positions of defense where, they're making it very difficult and really trying to, drag this process out, forcing property owners to spend, tens of thousands of dollars in engineers, attorneys' costs, and it just really hasn't been a good process so far. So, with the majority of the claims being held up in that, stage, we have out of the 800, I want to say probably just over 300 claims that are gearing up for litigation, just because the carrier has put their foot down, they don't want to move, and they're obviously for-profit companies. California Fair Plan, which is the only non-for-profit within the state of California, has also taken a pretty difficult stance. And there's been a lot of case law that these insurance companies have been pivoting on in regards to these fire claims and whether it is covered or not covered. And, that triggers, experts that need to testify on both ends. And, it's just been a pretty brutal process. And I'm very unhappy with the way that the insurance carriers have been handling this, since it's come in. And, what we do is really making sure that they're held accountable at this point. We get it as far as we can, with what is being provided, and if and when they put their foot down, we have strategic partnerships with law firms that are willing to step in, and go toe to toe with these guys on a complete contingency basis. And then when it comes to the building, we've seen a lot of payments that have been issued, but again, nowhere near the amount that it's actually going to take to restore. So that's where we've been assisting a lot with. We've got a few strategic partnerships with amazing equity funds, private equity funds that have been deploying millions of dollars, without any credit checks, no personal information needed, just a simple underwriting of what the insurance company's doing so far and if they're acting good or bad. And the ones that are acting bad and just not doing what they're supposed to, they've stepped in to bridge the gap so that these property owners can get back to a livable state, so they can move forward. And then the permitting process has been pretty brutal too. Those permits, depending on the severity of the damage, have been taking, what used to take us in California, 1 to 2 weeks. Some of them were what we call push to pay, where you could get it back the same day. It's been taking months. And, dealing with the municipalities, I don't blame them specifically, but they're just inundated right now with too much work and they haven't increased their staff, which is, put a lot of burdens on the workflow. But those are the trends that we're seeing. Obviously, we're hoping things start to get better, as, these attorneys help hold the insurance companies accountable. But, at the end of the day, they're fighting tooth and nail to pay as little as possible and try to get out of California completely because they don't want to deploy resources to fires anymore. This has been, bigger than they could have even imagined.
Thank you. Speaks
Mhm.
volumes. Zumi, Elvis, and then Rebecca have questions.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Justin, first of all, being here again. I'm glad you came back so that we can give more information. We touched on some of the questions that Trent just asked, but you said that um, you have a private company that
Uh-oh.
can provide but the home pay back.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if that was my internet, but it cut out. I heard you saying private equity fund, but then I didn't hear after that. If you could just
Yeah,
repeat.
I I hope it's coming through. So you said that the private equity fund is providing some gap funding where the insurance money comes short, but that means that the homeowners are still responsible in paying back that, no?
No, it's non-recourse funding,
Oh,
which
wow.
means what they're doing is they've worked with our construction companies to factor the invoices that are generated. But by factoring those invoices, they're assuming the risk. So that's why they will perform an underwriting. It is not credit-based. We don't take any personal information whatsoever. The underwriting is strictly from what the insurance claim, making sure that the policy has valid coverage, and assuming that. So in the event that the equity, one of three funds that we work with, have completed an underwriting and find out, and they approved it and they deploy the funds so that we can begin working. In the event that that insurance claim underpays, that's the risk that they're assuming. So they will do an underwriting. It's not guaranteed for everyone. They want to make sure that, 4 or 5 bullet points, within the policy and what the insurance is saying and doing, align. But, we do see a pretty high success rate in regards to being able to deploy just because of how bad they've been. But just short answer again, it is a non-recourse. It is not a loan. There's no deposit or down payment that's necessary whatsoever.
Mm,
And there's actually no agreement that the property owner signs with them either.
okay.
It would be strictly based with the construction company and what they're working on.
Thanks,
Okay,
Zumi and
the other
Justin.
question
Oh,
was,
sorry, go ahead.
I know that at this point, no, it's 7 months later, many homeowners who have been impacted are still dealing with it. And you said that you can come in at the beginning, but how about those homeowners who are currently struggling to deal with this insurance issues and rebuilding issues? They have probably made at least some progress. So can you come in any point in their process to help?
Absolutely. So, yes, to answer your question, we can come in at any stage, whether it's the very beginning, whether they've already been receiving some payments from the insurance company, but it's just not good enough, or if it is completely settled and they're looking to just build. So, we do prefer, of course, to start to finish, just because we can really outline all the different options. But I would say at least 30 to 40% of the claims that we do review and provide resources for have existing claims, and the insurance company has just not paid enough, and they're kind of at a standstill and not getting frequent movement right now. So yes, we are absolutely able to come in at any point in that process.
Thanks. Elvis, you're next.
Elvis left,
Oh,
so we could go to Rebecca.
Rebecca asked a question in the chat. You're free to come off mute if you'd like, Rebecca, but her question is, what is the average rebuild cost coming out to be?
Very hard question to answer. I would love to understand, a little bit more about the damage, because we've got certain situations that are what we call total loss, where the complete property has burned down, and then the compensation would be the full value of the insurance policy, is what we would be going for, in addition to any type of living expenses or out of pockets that came during the initial displacement. However, some properties we're seeing, they have burned roofs. Some properties have pretty significant interior. So, and then we do deal with, anywhere from 30, $40,000 claims all the way up to our biggest, which has been a $76 million claim. So, it's a big range. I'd love to get a little bit more specific if there was, in a free evaluation where we can say, but what we see the insurance companies, they're trying to get away paying about 40 to 50 cents on the dollar of what the damage is worth.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. What is the cost coming out to be, and where is insurance at for that?
Yeah. And then, of course, any specific situations, we're more than happy to take a look for you, and we can give you a much more, specific value of what we see there versus what you've already received. And we don't need other competing information to provide that.
Oh, no, I was just generally curious.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Rebecca. And if anybody else has, oh, Maria has one more question. Are you guys also working on rebuilding schools?
Yes. So schools, we have actually, there's only two schools that we have worked on so far. Not completely rebuild from start to finish, but one of our subcontractors that handles large loss, who has handled some of our very, very, multi-million dollar projects, and projects worth over tens of millions. We do have the resources to connect the dots. In that case, we wouldn't take any money, but we would set the introduction, which they're currently doing not only schools, but they're doing, government centers, they're doing police stations, and a ton of different work. But yes, we absolutely can assist with rebuilding any types of schools that have been affected.
Thank you, and thanks for the question, Maria. So Elvis is back in the chat. Elvis, I think you're gonna end up with the last question for Justin, so go ahead.
Of course, I'd lose connection right as I.
Oh,
All right, you hear me?
there you are, there you are. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I'd lose connection right as I was gonna ask my question. Well, this is actually an open-ended question for both sides. Actually, I'm a partner with Izumi and a part with Justin as well. I had worked with Izumi to bring Justin on to this call. So I was kind of being the merger here. But as far as what I'm hearing so far, what what is the reality of what Justin is presenting and what the USGBC's I guess roles and duties, and where does this kind of merge? I know earlier when Kayla was introducing the programs and events and things that were going on with the USGBC. A lot of it was, about the wildfire repairs, and there's even a big retrofit tour coming up, right? So, what is that? What does that relationship look like? What look the reason behind why Justin is here and what it would mean to partner with the USGBC. I'm also a member of the USGBC California. But yeah, I did this for some kind of purpose of a relationship. So what would that look like now that you're hearing more of what Justin offers and Justin's kind of understanding what the USGBC is? Yeah, like
Yeah,
what?
so I think an answer is and I spoke to Justin about this yesterday, is really
Oh, okay.
what is the overlap in addition to just providing services for those who are affected by the fires. Justin did mention to me yesterday these ways that people, as he mentioned, hinted at a little bit earlier, that Restore Zone and Justin's sort of multiplicity of resources and talents can help people not just rebuild, but rebuild better. And a part of that is definitely going to be in lowering both embodied and continuing operation carbon costs, as well as hard costs as well. Justin, do you want to take just a moment to expand upon that? And I will also real quickly just say, Elvis, we should throw the link in the chat, and perhaps Ben, Kayla, whoever wants to talk about the rebuilding guide process. But maybe Justin, if you could just begin by quickly addressing the efficiency options when it comes to rebuilding.
Yeah, absolutely. We align in multiple different ways. What I would say, one of the big things we can help when it comes to your question, Elvis, wildfires specifically, maybe it wasn't just specific to property owners. For the wildfires, we do tons of debris clearing, and we have partners with nonprofits as well that are happy to inject resources into restoring land that was affected that may not be insured as well. And then, obviously we want to help the residents that have been affected as much as possible. But like Trent touched on, it's not just about getting them, a fair shake with this process and getting them more information, but it's actually making sure that when we do build things back, that it is efficient, that it mitigates everything, reduces carbon footprint, and really between the building materials that can be used. We want to align ourselves with you guys to see, what those, what that looks like, and where we can provide resources. And then on the funding side, our private equity funds that we're working with, they're looking for causes and places to deploy cash specific to the state of California. So really, we just want to be a tool on your tool belt to help out, wherever and however we can, whether it's small, whether it's big. We're definitely interested in anything that's proposed.
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of respond to what our approach has been to try to help with wildfire rebuilding and recovery efforts. And hey, I think I know a variety of folks here. My name is Ben Stapleton. I'm the executive director here at USGBC California. And overall, I think we've really been trying to see how we can empower contractors, architects, those who are doing the work with education information on how to rebuild more resiliently, more sustainably, and provide the education for that. So we have a rebuild certificate program that's launching later this month. We'll have our first pilot class on the 21st, which I think is actually next week. And then we'll be offering those classes once a month through probably Q2 of next year, I would imagine, for contractors. We also really felt like, there needs to be, education and engagement for residents, and also really trying to hold that residents are probably in a place where they're overwhelmed and there's just so much being thrown at them to begin with. We launched our rebuild guide in April, which I know a number of you have seen. We are updating that right now and doing a version 2.0, which I think we'll release probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We just wanted to get some more information on incentives that we're rolling out that we can incorporate into that. And we're doing community workshops. Sometimes we're hosting our own, sometimes we're just participating in others. So I just want to kind of frame that, because what we want to try to do is help connect the dots in a way that can be helpful for people around rebuilding, provide education. We also have a rebuild marketplace that the intent of that is to facilitate group purchasing. So, and I can put a link here in the chat if you want in a second, but the tool essentially will automatically combine purchases for similar products in similar areas, and hopefully allow for reduction of pricing, because we wanted to make using sustainable materials more accessible, right? Hopefully buying heat pumps more accessible. And so I don't think we've seen the volume yet there on that, but I think we're going to get there as we get towards the end of the year, because I don't think we've seen the volume yet on people really getting to a place where they're actually putting in procurement of products yet. That really hasn't happened. But we have been getting a lot of manufacturers on the platform, which should help create visibility and ability to reduce costs. So I also just want to note that we're out in the community on probably a 1 to 2 weeks at some kind of event, connecting with people, and I just want a presence with everyone. I'm sure anyone who's doing this work, this is gonna be a really long-term process. It is emotional, it is trauma, and I just want to make sure we hold that for folks and try to be helpful, right, in any way we can. And the pricing part really concerns me. I know you were talking, Justin, about pricing. We had the question. I've been hearing wide ranges of pricing on a per square foot basis from people out in the field. I've also been getting a lot of pushback on electrification on rebuilds. As much as we talk about, hey, this should be, at par for price, or potentially less, because you don't have to run, piping for gas and things like that. Residents have been telling me directly that they're getting quotes that are 20 to 30 grand higher to go all electric than not, which, isn't necessarily a huge amount, but is consequential, right? It's still 20 to 30 grand. And so one of the things I'd love to bring back to this group, and I've been kind of posing this question to folks who do electrification work, is help folks figure out a way to do that, right? That is at par on cost, or at least help us acknowledge what that is. So anyway, I just want to share a little bit about what we're doing to try to answer your question, Elvis. Hopefully this helps a little bit about the role we're playing. At the end of the day, we want to try to connect the dots, and I think Trent and Zumi have done a great job of that with this committee, of bringing folks in who have resources and expertise to help, during this time. So
Thank
hopefully
you.
that.
Yeah, can I just pop one last question before I close?
No, Elvis, I'm really sorry, but we do have to move on to our next speaker. I would
Okay.
encourage you to, for you and to Justin and anybody else who'd like to place your emails in the chat.
That's fine. We're all linked through emails, whether you, me, and Izumi, and Justin. I'll ask this. It's a back end question anyways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks, Ben, for the overview. So much to do, so much going on. Everybody's putting a lot into this, so appreciate it, Justin. Appreciate you and your work. And really quickly, how can people find out more about you and Restore Zone if they'd like to do that?
Yeah, so I'm going to send you, Trent, I'm going to send you over some flyers with our contact information. I'll also put my email, everything in there. We also have a 24-hour line that I can push out. But yes, any questions, if anyone wants to schedule any one-on-ones, I'll make sure that my email is dispersed to Trent, and he can put that as he sees fits with everybody else.
Can you put it in the chat for those who are?
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Justin. I am going to move us along now. I'd like to welcome Ken Levenson from Passive House Network. Ken is dialing in from Brooklyn, New York, and in the interest of time and efficiency, I'm going to ask Ken to introduce himself. Hi, Ken. Ken, you're on mute.
There we go.
There we go. Great, thank you.
Hi, thank you, Trent. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Today, I want to speak briefly about Passive House, give you a little bit of information about our organization, and talk a little bit about an initiative that we have underway, a design competition. And we're really happy to be, working with USGBC California in a number of different ways, but particularly having as a community partner for this ongoing effort. So let me do this. Oh, I see. Great. So let's get started. I'll run through this quickly. So passive house. I like to think of it as, creating homes that are in balance, perhaps a new balance of high efficiency, high performance, resilience. We think about them in terms of future proofing. They can be light filled. They can engage with nature, zero energy buildings. And we're happy to see them happening all across the United States. Uh, and so a little bit about me, I'll segue in here. They could also be historic buildings too, right? Literally historic buildings, retrofitted. This was my first project, my first passive house project as an architect. I practiced architecture for a couple of decades in New York City. This is a 1849 townhouse in Brooklyn Heights that we did a gut renovation to the passive house standards, and went from what would have been a 12 to 15 ton air conditioning system to a 3-ton air conditioning system. And just really thermally comfortable, quiet, resilient, super exciting, and got me thinking about how do we scale this and make this happen everywhere. Of course, I want to note briefly that Passive House is not just about houses. The name is a bit of a zinger, but it's apartment buildings, factories, schools, office buildings, hotels, dormitories, university buildings of all kinds, fire stations, and on and on. There's even a jail in Austria that's a certified Passive House, as well as a courthouse. So really anything is possible and across all the climate zones. You're very fortunate in Southern California to be perhaps in the easiest climate zone around, and makes hitting the targets very, very reasonable in terms of what is possible. I like to think of Passive House and the power of it is really focusing on fundamental elements that drive the performance of buildings. Think of it like cooking, which I love this book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Basic elements of cooking. If you master these, you can make a great meal every time, and you really have a handle on the outcome of it. With buildings, Passive House allows us to do that. It's the calculated and predictable results where we're hitting hard targets, not just difficult hard, but solid hard targets. So you know what you're going to get. And it makes a huge difference in terms of the optimization, both in terms of performance, but in cost as well. And what are these ingredients in Passive House? Well, it's always a bit more complicated, but we can boil it down to 5 basic things. And the first 4 are all about the envelope. We do call it a fabric first or envelope first approach. Climate specific insulation levels. So in your case, we're talking about very standard 2x framing of a home wrapped in continuous insulation. And that continuous insulation, depending on the specifics of the project, could be a little thicker or a little thinner, but not nothing out of hand. Thermal bridge free. So that continuous insulation, think of it like a parka, and your parka is geared towards the environment you're in. The harsher it is, the heavier the parka. We want that parka to not have holes in it, to have thermal bridges. And so we work really hard to eliminate them. And it's one of the big differences between a more conventional approach to an energy efficient building and a passive house building, is nailing all those down and plugging all the holes. Along with those thermal bridging holes, we're plugging the air tightness holes as well. We want an airtight building, and it's exciting to see awareness around this growing. It's both in terms of maintaining an good indoor air quality, but keeping the pollution out. And we see it particularly with the wildfire smoke. And, so much has been written now about how terrible, with the houses being lost, but then the houses that were remaining standing and have been so incredibly damaged by smoke infiltration. Passive house air tightness can really mitigate that. And we have instances from the Marshall Fire in Colorado from several years ago, where passive house construction was night and day after the fires compared to the neighbors. With these three things, we pair it with high performance windows and doors. We want daylight. We want fresh air when there's appropriate fresh air and it's comfortable, and we're very happy to have natural ventilation. We just know we can't count on it. So we also have, with these 4 envelope attributes, hygienic ventilation with high efficiency heat recovery. So we're ventilating continuously, and we're placing it throughout the home, throughout the building, and ensuring high quality. So that's the basic nutshell of what drives the ultimate performance of the building. And digging into that. It also helps make incredibly grid-friendly buildings rather than big swings, which we may have in a typical net zero home, where the seasonal swings between what is possible in terms of electricity production and the demand can actually be quite onerous on the grid. If we can crush the demand and flatten it, we can tune it better to the grid and reduce those swings in a number of ways. So Passive House, the thing that I like in particular about it is that it brings people to it from all different types of perspectives and needs and wants, and depending on what your priorities are. So the comfort is really unsurpassed, and the indoor air quality. It's quiet, it's resilient and safe. It gives you savings perpetually in terms of going forward. And so really seeing high levels of satisfaction. And then ultimately, what may seem like a higher risk investment, we're seeing realized as a lower risk investment because it's a durable, high quality asset. One of the terms we like to use is to future-proof your home. The extremes are growing, and to the extent that we can have a robust enclosure, all the better. One of the things has been interesting over the last couple of years is this dovetailing of high performance resilient construction with the needs of fire resilience. And as wildfires have grown, now there's no fireproof building in the world, even if you build your building out of all fire, non-flammable materials, fire is going to get in and the buildings will burn from the inside out. It's happening in Greece right now. So these attributes, though, help support fire resilience. And so very much in the DNA of what we can do in doing that, in addition to airtightness. So as the weather's getting more
I'm sorry, we only have 3 minutes left, and so I would
okay.
skip.
I'm sorry.
Skip to the California stuff and the competition, and then
that was the end of my.
For those
Sure.
who can continue to stay on after 1, then we can do further Q&A. Thank you.
Fair enough. Our organization, nonprofit training, disaster relief. So we're here doing a design competition, a Passive House design competition. We want to develop a catalog of high performance homes that help inspire and inform rebuilding efforts. And really happy to be working with USGBC California. We are happy to just announce now that the awards ceremony will be on the eve of Green Build on November 4th at the AIA Los Angeles Center for Communities. We're working with Passive House California, of course, as well, and really looking forward to a robust selection across many different styles of architecture, and looking to go towards those pre-approved plans, and hopefully making an impact there now and in the future. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, I didn't mean it to be that quick, but
Oh, well.
I think so. There are 2 questions, or just one question from Daniel in the chat, but I might squeeze one in there really quickly for those who are interested in entering. Who is the California Rebuilds competition aimed at?
So it's aimed at the architecture, design, building community. It is, there is, let me see, can I put, I was gonna drop some links into the chat that people
Yeah,
can go
do
to.
it.
I'm administratively restricted, it looks like.
Oh,
Um,
send me a private message and then I can put it for everybody. I don't know why that is. Sorry.
okay, no problem. Try to do that. So, uh, you know, there's a certain amount of passive house knowledge that you need if to we want these to be real buildable, well designed buildings that are passive house performance. So they're not going to be completely thought out. It's going to be, you know, in a design development stage. But certainly some education around passive house and being able to either directly manipulate the energy model, the passive house energy model, or know somebody who can help you to do that. We will have a question Q&A session with Passive House California next week. And yeah, there's a number of resources that could help support if you are interested in entering. And certainly you could email me.
Great, thank you. And I just put a link to the to what I believe is the California Rebuild Design Competition page in the chat. For those of you who do have to drop off right now, thank you for being here. We'll see you next month. For those of you who do have a second to stay, Ken, do you have a second to stay?
Absolutely.
Daniel, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Oh, I see.
Hi, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, specifically, I have an internship coming up with a multifamily affordable housing um, property, so that's on my mind. But does Passive House, is it usually from the original design, or well, you already said, you already showed an example of a retrofit. That was a pretty major retrofit. So are your like energy efficient? Are there different Passive House energy efficiency weatherization recommendations than perhaps a standard energy efficiency or weatherization recommendation?
Yeah, it's really a matter of the uh, kind of holistic and intentional rigorous application of it. So the airtightness is like pretty sacrosanct, that we want to go to quite airtight even in a retrofit situation, and that we're going to be blower door testing that and um, and making sure that it's done durably. And in terms of minimizing the thermal bridging is very specific and intentional, and putting that in the energy model to make sure that we know the implications of that. Um, you know, essentially, you know, buildings can be turned into passive house buildings, and during the design of them, it's better to start on day one with the programming with the goal of passive house, and the later, each kind of step later, it's potentially making it more difficult and harder to realize like the passive house objectives. Um, the worst case scenario is somebody, we have, you know, folks who are just going into building and they're hear about passive house and they're like, oh, I want to turn our plans into a passive house. Now, it may be possible, but chances are it's going to be very painful and expensive and unnecessarily unnecessarily so. So to really cost optimize it, you want to start at the beginning. We say wait for the next project.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you, Ken. And as someone who tried to build as close to passive house as possible home here in Los Angeles, it's also a matter of resiliency in terms of what you're willing to pay for. Your contractor, once they realize, no, I want a foot of insulation, keep that foot of insulation there. It's not the last thing on the budget. It's not the first thing to go. It does require, after they've decided that if they have to do 10 other things, it also costs tens of thousands of dollars. You have to really have the fortitude to stick with it in terms of, at least in my personal experience. But after I did it, I couldn't be happier with where we're at now. I have a really thick, tight envelope, and I have one mini split for the entire house, and it's more than enough for the whole house. So just another little zinger for folks. But yes, earlier is always better when it comes to sustainability, mostly from a cost point of view, in my experience. Any other questions for Ken? Okay, tons more resources up on the Passive House Network website, as well as more information about how to join the competition. Ken, anything else before we wrap up from you?
No, just I encourage everybody to take a look. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to me. We have ongoing training for architects, designers, and we work with another organization, Even Passive, that does tradesperson training. And there's a lot happening around this in Southern California, and we'd love to connect.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. So nice to see you all. I put my email in the chat just in case anybody wants to reach out to me. Azumi is azumi@azumitanaka.com. There's always so much to see and do at the USGBC California Community Hub, which has just gotten a major upgrade with this app. So encourage you all to check that out as well. And we're always taking ideas for meetings. So if anybody has ideas for folks and or concepts or topics to broach in the context of this audience, that would be great. It was so nice to see all of the new folks here, and we'll see you next month.
One quick question to Kayla. Where would this recording be posted where people can access, or do you have to be a member to access the recording?
Going forward, we're going to be including these recordings in our programs monthly. So if you haven't, please navigate to our website, scroll all the way down. You can opt into our newsletters. I believe there's also a page where on our website where all of the YouTube recordings will be as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Kayla, thank you,
you.
Justin and Cam, both of you, for coming
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.